Okay, so this is the second video that forms part of my presentation for the MCR. And what I'd like to do now is look at more conceptually what the work is doing. I've got it to a stage where I've been working on it aesthetically and combining different elements to make something that I think has an internal visual kind of system or structure of thoughts. And now I want to talk about how I think this work operates in culture. So just to give an overview of what I think this work actually is, I think that it references architectural structures that I find beautiful in the Balinese environment. Firstly, the floral bowls of water all over the streets of Ubud that are decorated largely by Balinese Hindu women are referenced time and time again in my work in these abstracted forms. Now there's also a combination of floral carved elements contributed by Balinese wood carvers. These are in the form of traditional Balinese patra or patterns that refer to the lotus flower, a major symbol in Balinese Hinduism. Now these adorn homes, public buildings and temples. I've chosen as the base, it's actually called the Balinese kenchut. Kenchut, this kind of sort of square structure here, here's another one over here. This square structure are bases for traditional Balinese homes, or in Indonesian the word is rumah adat Bali. Now what about these poles? Well, I think that they allude to bamboo poles, believe it or not, which I sort of see everywhere in the landscape. So, for example, this is my studio, there's a series of them there. But bamboo is used as an architectural element to construct houses. And in Bali, things are constantly being renovated, homes and buildings, because of the tropical environment, and also because the materials in Bali have... building materials in Bali tend to be fragile and non-permanent compared to the ones that we use in the West to construct homes. So I think that's what this work is referring to, public environment of Bali, believe it or not. But what I think is interesting here is that this information drawn from the public environment is somehow rearranged into this non-rational personal aesthetic system. It's not a faithful copy of an Ubud street scene painted in oils, for example. These architectural elements are somehow mediated by my imagination, and I think this is enhanced by the work process in not having any preconceived ideas before I start out making them. And the resulting product is somehow not fully integrated with the world around it. I think these works are autonomous. They stand apart. They don't look like anything else other than art. I don't think they do. So in a way, we could say this non-rationality suggests alternate possibilities for the heavily rationalised space of everyday life. The French philosopher Jacques Rancière talks about varying regimes of the aesthetic in his aesthetic regimes that he has theoretically devised, and the aesthetic regime in his sort of system of regimes that he talks about art. You have to excuse me, that sounds a bit confused there. I'll just do that again. In his domain of the aesthetic, he has different regimes in which to talk about the aesthetic. But in the aesthetic regime, he says that the aesthetic is political precisely for that reason. It's non-rational, and in its sort of non-rationality offers a different way of thinking, or compared to the heavily rationalised space of everyday life. Now, what I'm really interested that the anti-authoritarian German philosopher Herbert Marcuse also would say that this non-rational type of art has a type of otherness about it because it is autonomous and non-rational. He has argued that this model of thinking about art is non-repressive insofar as the work of beauty resists, by virtue of its otherness, the superimposed administered unification and homogeneity of modern society. Marcuse is an enthusiast of Immanuel Kant's theories of the beautiful art object. So I've been interested so far to discover in my research that this idea of art stemming from the imagination and its non-rational domain and its autonomy is actually an idea of beauty in art theorised by Immanuel Kant, and I adopt this in my own practice. I think I've demonstrated this very well so far, that is how I work and what the work is doing. So this approach to produce this type of art actually stems from my training on my MA spent at Goldsmiths College in London. That art should stem from the imagination, be non-rational and autonomous, has been argued by American fine art professor at Michigan University, Tobin Siebers, also to be an idea of otherness. This has been an exciting discovery for me, as when I wanted to research beauty, I was not aware that this mode of engagement with art was actually one philosophical model of the beautiful, and that I've been using it for years. It seems my training has a substantial debt to Immanuel Kant, and hence my work does as well. Tobin Siebers has said that he cannot think of a single defence of art on ideological grounds that does not owe a substantial debt to Kant, and he refers to Adorno's aesthetics, Herbert Marcuse and Walter Benjamin, to name a few. So this is real grounds for me to argue that beauty may be used in a progressive sense in art in terms of its otherness. In its non-rationality, art becomes other. And that's a really very, very interesting thing for me. I think that using the different aesthetic systems that I'm engaging here, the Balinese, wood carving, and my own work only serves to increase this idea of otherness, because it's two different aesthetic systems that are in juxtaposition with each other. Two systems of beauty, and I need to say that beauty is sought after in the practice of Balinese Hinduism. Two systems of beauty that have actually two different values. So with this in mind, I think it's important I do this, Balinese reading of the work, Linga Yoni, which is when Linga and Yoni come together, it's the Hindu concept of oneness. There's no opposition, so there's balance between cultures, and that is something that many Balinese Hindus here have talked to me about, particularly from Isi Denpasar, where I've been working. Now, just quickly, I'd like to say that the second aspect of my work that I'd like to discuss is I'm very interested that these works could be read as pretty. They engage the decorative and feminine flowers. They're sourced from decorative practices of arranging flowers. I would say they are not associated with the sublime, the type of overwhelming and awe-inspiring beauty that is associated with grand natural vistas, for example, a starry night, or indeed the ocean. This work is more human in scale. There you go, human in scale. This work is more human in scale, and I think this is why I started to reference the flower bowls in Bali, as opposed to snorkelling in the ocean, which I mentioned in my introduction to my report. The beautiful flower bowls are actually more manageable in terms of drawing inspiration. I have more control over them. When we see something pretty, we often stop thinking, and involuntary pleasure takes over. I'm going over here now. Involuntary pleasure takes over. Jeremy Gilbert Rolfe has used examples of fashion models. Their purpose is not to make us think seriously. It's for us to stop us dead in our tracks. Stop thought. We could call pretty frivolous. And what a powerful domain the frivolous is. Gilbert Rolfe has also said that Derrida has noted that the frivolous is a word the serious dictionary cannot really convey the sense and meaning of, as it can only provide a serious account of pretty. Jeremy Gilbert Rolfe, he's a British artist, by the way, I haven't said that, has said that Western art is bound by ideas trying to control the beautiful. Frivolous has the power to challenge the idea by stopping it. When thought is stopped and involuntary pleasure takes over, we're forced to live in the present, not engaged in ideas or art that is in a process of deferral. I think my art is pretty, and when I look at it still, there is a sense of involuntary pleasure, in which sensation is the primary response. Although I think that this pleasure is not serious, it's frivolous in its frivolity, it stands as a challenge to the idea and becomes serious by default. But this serious, it actually starts from sensation. So the pretty configured as beautiful is also able to be associated with progressive thinking in art as it challenges the serious. Okay, I hope I've said enough now. Thank you.